Hello, Cal.
How you going, buddy? Good to see you.
Good. Thanks for filling in for me yesterday.
That was a pleasure.
Yeah, don't get too used to the hot seat.
I want the top job.
Yeah. Today, you're talking about AI and its impact in the Australian, economy, the markets, and everything else. What made you write about that today?
Well, look, I just happened to be flicking through the paper yesterday, and this particular report that's been issued was mentioned, and I thought, oh, that's really interesting. But the problem was, of course, the RBA met yesterday, and so therefore, that always dominates the news on the day. So the mention of this report, I assume most people didn't see it because it got lost the noise. And a particular group called the Social Policy Group have come out, and their position is that AI could slam the Australian labour market 30%. 30% of jobs are at risk by 2030. So I thought that was a fairly important report. Doesn't necessarily mean I go along with everything that they're saying, but to my mind, the rise of AI is much more important than what the RBA said yesterday.
Right. And why is that? Can you explain why?
Well, first of all, this is a major tech innovation, and it's going to filter through to every single industry in many different ways. And the impact that it can have on the asset markets and your wealth is profound. So obviously, we know there's the bullish side. Where had you been on Nvidia, through this AI cycle, you would have made a lot of money. But if this report is correct, the implication is that a lot of people would lose their job. That 60% of the Australian economy is consumer demand, so that would drive down GDP. Then house prices will be at risk because you'd have less pressure on the bids, but also people losing their jobs.
Hmm.
And of course, if you're long term in a stock that's dependent on consumer spending, well, you want to know whether people are going to have money in their pockets. So, the implications of it are really profound. Now, in the article, I point out that people are always using new tech throughout history to put the fear of unemployment out there. We had it with the internet when it came around, and I remember, only 10 years ago, how time flies. 10 years ago, I did a podcast with a guy who wrote a book called The Rise of the Robots, and he was saying, oh, look, you better worry, unemployment. Of course, unemployment's been low the whole time since. So, again, I haven't completely made up my mind on this, but again, and I also allude to this in the article, that beliefs drive behavior too. So, if people begin to fear AI or fear their job, that will contract their spending. So, it's something to watch for in your
Yeah.
companies that you own. Is AI a benefit? Obviously, for an Nvidia, it's a massive benefit. If you're in an industry that's going to get disrupted, say for example, content creation or like an artist
Publishing.
now, the way that sorry,
Publishing.
publishing. Well, I mean, who knows how all this is going to play out? So again, if you're in a particular company, you need to be aware, are the management team across this and how it's developing. So it just seemed a very important point amongst all the waffle that we read every time the RBA gets together.
Hmm. One of the things you highlight is you highlight Australia's economic vulnerability to AI disruption, and you pinpoint that it's due to its lack of complexity. Um, but for investors predominantly exposed to the ASX specifically, like what sectors or companies do you see as being potentially more resilient to
Well,
this
let me say that was
AI-driven
the report.
transformation?
Part of the report why Australia is vulnerable to AI disruption. Their position is that because of its
Right.
lack of diversity, we basically export raw materials, and the rest is services and government spending to a large degree. Well, the most resilient sectors are obviously those that don't involve software-based roles, kind of thing. So construction, mining, agriculture. I mean, it depends how far the AI and how fast it develops. So obviously, we have driverless trucks in mining, so that displaces drivers. But then they can go deeper into the mines too. So the miners can become more profitable. So it's very hard to even say who wins and who loses in what ways because we just don't know what's going to come about. But I mean, certainly, and companies could in turn lower costs. So we talk about publishing. Well, maybe an AI starts writing material for us. We don't know. We're not doing it now, of course, but that's maybe one person that we don't need to do that type of thing. So as a share market investor, it may actually increase profits. in the business, but the problem is, what is the flow-on effect for society? Just because it's
Mm,
good for a stock or the share market, as we hear about with the US, where the share market's booming, but only the top 10% own all the stocks. What about the rest of them?
mm.
So it may not be necessarily good for society as a whole.
I don't know. I'm skeptical, especially when it comes to publishing, because I think our readers that they appreciate and want a human touch or human thought and ideas, which I don't think you can really get from AI yet. Although that said, you do use AI to help find you trades, but that's a different thing entirely because you use
Yeah,
uh,
exactly. So again, we may find that this report is baseless.
mm,
And then Chewy, my mate with the small cap systems, who's right into AI, he doesn't go along with this idea. He's like, well, I went through the internet phase and everybody said the same thing. And AI is very good things that are structured, like languages, where you basically have a bunch of words that don't change or
yeah.
change much, and the rules are consistent, kind of thing. But something like the share market, it's not structured. It's all over the shop all the time, and different things are pulling on it. So it's very hard to have a rules based program like AI where it can replicate the same thing over and over, which is what it does.
Well, it comes back to your point about market psychology, and that perception is often what matters more than reality. What early warning signs would you suggest investors watch for that might indicate AI disruption fears are beginning to influence market sentiment?
Well, I mean, the biggest one we have is there was a stock off the top of my head. Now that I can't remember, but last year they came out and said, "Look, we are losing a little bit of market share to this new AI version of basically what we do," and the stock was cut in half on the day. And this is why I bring it to attention. It's not whether it's going to happen or not going to happen. It's what people believe
Yeah.
in the short term, especially. So if you're in a stock and they come out and go, geez, we've lost, there's this new AI program and it's encroaching on our market. Well, it's only natural that investors will panic and go, well, well, I want to get out before I find out what's real or right. That's just the way the market works. It just dumps things as soon as there's trouble on the horizon. People don't wait around quickly. So obviously, in terms of the job losses, I haven't really seen a lot of companies come out and go they're sacking people because AI can now do their job for them.
Mm,
So as again, this is just a thought that we're putting out there, but again, these guys are projecting out 5 years. It's like, what are we going to be looking at in 2 years, 3 years, 1 year, and 5 years? And it's going to change
mm,
fast. There's so much money going into it that it's a bit like the frog in the thing where slowly everything's cooking away. You don't really notice until, oh, geez, I just got boiled. So all I'm saying is you have to be watching this and learning about where it's going, who's leading it, who's on the at risk, who isn't at risk, etc. Because I do believe it will influence share prices. Where it may just be that where in the past the market would pay 20 times earnings for a company, if there's some sort of AI cloud over them, that it could be that multiple could go down to 10 because the
mhm.
market won't bid with that risk on the horizon. So you have to be aware of those type of things because of the
Yeah.
way the shares trade.
Yeah, and you think in the small cap sector, which is where you focus, that there's got to be heaps of opportunities as well, right? As well as
Oh yeah,
a lot of the
I
stuff
mean,
going on.
we've talked
Mm,
about the bearish side of
yeah.
things today, but again, Appen, for example, in August started rallying. So this is a known company associated with AI. It's up for like 500% in a few months.
Yeah.
So again, AI it has like magic dust for some stocks like Nuix, which we've done well out of this year in my publication. But for other stocks, it will be, I don't know, a lump of coal at Christmas.
Yeah. Talking of lump of coal, I was chatting to James Cooper on at our Christmas party on Friday, and one of the topics was AI and mining, and he was saying it's like mining has never changed. Like that, it seems to be the least innovative sector. They don't seem to, but other than like you say, like the driverless trucks and all that sort of stuff. But the actual
Well,
business of digging
AI could
dirt
be
out.
really interesting in terms of analyzing the data. So the guys
Mm,
have to try and
yeah.
guess or estimate, I should say, what sort of deposit they've got. If AI can analyze results, it could be a huge boon for those
Mm.
guys. So it's both exciting and disconcerting at the same time.
Well, there we go. We'll leave it at that. Plenty to dive into in 2025 to see which side it all falls on. Um,
Absolutely, it's huge, and as we've seen in America, it can drive really big gains. So
yeah,
if that comes to mining, for example, in Australia, well, all bets are off. It could be really exciting.
cool. All right, Callum, thanks for today. Well, I'll catch you next week on Wednesday. And if you'd like to read what Callum says today in FTD, Fat Tail Daily, the link is below. Cheers, buddy.
Cool. Thanks, Woods.